Let's talk about something that nobody warns you about when you start the self-awareness journey. At first, it feels like enlightenment. Like you've unlocked the cheat code to being human. You're reflecting. You're noticing your patterns. You're not just reacting anymore, you're watching yourself react. You're catching your ego in the act. You feel woke, but then something shifts. Suddenly, every move you make comes with a second voice. Every thought has a thought about the thought. You smile and then immediately question whether that smile was genuine. You speak and wonder if you were performative.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
You feel happy and within seconds, you're analyzing why you feel happy, if it's real, or if it's some conditioned response from childhood. You start watching yourself live instead of just living. Congratulations. You've fallen into the trap Alan Watts warned us about, becoming too self-aware. And if you've been there, you know the feeling. It's like being stuck in a psychological house of mirrors. You try to move forward, but every direction just leads to another reflection of yourself, staring back, judging, evaluating, wondering if you're being authentic enough, enlightened enough, present enough. Sound familiar? Because here's the thing. Self-awareness isn't bad. In fact, it's a powerful, necessary part of growth. But Watts draws a line in the sand. He tells us that self-awareness is like salt, sprinkle it in and it flavors the meal. Dump in the whole shaker and, well, you've ruined dinner. That's where a lot of people get lost. Not because they're unaware, but because they've become too aware. Paralyzed by their own internal observer. So cautious about their every move that spontaneity dies, creativity stalls, and authenticity feels like a fading memory. Let's take a second and picture the infamous centipede dilemma Watts used to describe this. You know it, a centipede walks just fine until someone asks it, "Hey, how do you move all those legs at once?" And suddenly, the centipede freezes. It can't walk anymore, not because it forgot how, but because now it's thinking about walking. Every leg becomes a calculation. That's you. That's me. That's all of us when self-awareness turns into surveillance. Instead of being present in life, we're evaluating our performance in it. Like a one-person reality show where you're the star, the director, the audience, and the critic all at once. And it's exhausting. You can't relax. You can't create. You can't even feel without that extra voice narrating. Am I doing this right? You've become the watcher watching the watcher watching the watcher, an infinite regression of consciousness that sounds spiritual until it just starts driving you quietly insane. And here's the mind-blowing part. Trying to escape this state by watching it just makes it worse. Because now you're watching yourself being self-conscious about being self-conscious. It's like trying to fall asleep by focusing harder on how badly you need to fall asleep. The effort itself becomes the problem. Watts would call this the ultimate paradox of the mind. The harder you try to let go, the more tightly you grip. You've probably felt it. Maybe you've tried meditating, only to find yourself thinking about how well you're meditating. Maybe you've tried to be yourself in a conversation and ended up second-guessing every word that came out of your mouth. Maybe you've tried to create something from the heart, but self-doubt crept in like static, and suddenly you're stuck reworking the same paragraph, brushstroke, or melody because it doesn't feel authentic enough. So what gives? Why does something as noble and spiritual as self-awareness turn on us? Watts says it's because we split ourselves. We begin to see our experience as divided. There's me, and then there's the one watching me. We turn our awareness into a surveillance camera. And the moment you start filming your life like it's a performance, you stop being in it. You become an actor in your own skin. And that's where the danger lies, not in awareness itself, but in letting it turn into a full-time identity. When we make being self-aware the goal, we become addicted to the mirror, obsessed with polishing our reflection instead of actually living our lives. But life doesn't want performance. Life wants participation. It wants the messy, chaotic, unfiltered version of you. The you that laughs too loud sometimes. The you that forgets what you were saying mid-sentence. The you that dances when no one's watching and maybe even when they are. Watts would tell you, that's the real you. Not the one endlessly analyzing motives or monitoring posture or asking, am I healed yet? Because healing isn't a performance either. And enlightenment, it's not a 24/7 state of flawless inner peace. It's being able to drop the performance, even for a moment, and let life flow through you without needing to pause and assess its meaning. So what's the way out of this self-awareness spiral? It's not less awareness. That would be like trying to forget how to walk. It's integration. It's realizing that the observer and the observed were never separate to begin with.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
That the voice in your head trying to narrate your life doesn't have to be shut off, it just doesn't need to run the show. You don't need to evict it. You just need to stop letting it hold the microphone. And that's where the magic happens. The moment you stop trying to perform awareness and start letting yourself be aware, naturally, like breathing, the layers fall away. Suddenly, you're not thinking about being alive, you are alive. You're not performing joy, you're feeling it. You're not pretending to be calm, you just are. You're not scanning for am I doing this right? Because there's nothing to get right. There's just this moment, this conversation, this breath. And yes, sometimes you'll slip back into the mirrors. You'll get caught up in wondering if you're being authentic or doing life correctly. That's okay. It's human. But when it happens, don't panic. Don't spiral. Just notice, smile, and step back into yourself, not the watching version, but the living one. Because Alan Watts didn't teach self-awareness as a trap. He taught it as a doorway, a tool, something you pick up when needed, then set down when it's time to dance. He'd say, stop measuring days by degree of productivity and start experiencing them by degree of presence. Because presence doesn't need perfection. It doesn't need performance. It just needs you. Fully, messily, beautifully here. So the next time you feel yourself tightening up, watching yourself too hard, remember the centipede. So here you are, standing at this intersection between presence and paralysis. You felt the weight of watching yourself live, the self-conscious loop that spins faster the more you try to slow it down. And now you're starting to see the irony of it all. You didn't become more self-aware so you could feel less alive. You didn't peel back layers of your personality just to get stuck debating which one is the real you. And that's the trap, right? You dig deep hoping to find clarity, only to end up buried under your own analysis. Alan Watts saw this happening everywhere, in spiritual seekers, in philosophers, in everyday people trying to be better versions of themselves, and he sounded the alarm gently but firmly. You are not here to perfect yourself. You are here to participate. And let's be clear, introspection can be beautiful. Self-awareness can be powerful. But there's a line between being with yourself and turning yourself into a project that's never finished. Watts invites us to cross back over that line, to stop micromanaging our existence and start trusting the deeper intelligence underneath it all. He talks about how nature never worries about being natural. Trees don't grow while second-guessing how leafy they should be. Rivers don't ask if they're flowing the right way. The sun doesn't wake up anxious about whether it's being too bright today. But we humans, overthinkers, self-conscious little creatures, spend hours rehearsing conversations, watching ourselves from the outside, running simulations in our heads before we ever move in the real world. We've turned being alive into an audition. And what are we auditioning for, exactly? Approval. Belonging. The elusive badge of enlightened that says we've made it. That badge doesn't exist. And even if it did, it would be irrelevant. Because the goal was never to win at being self-aware. It was to wake up to life, to the actual, visceral, chaotic, wondrous flow of it. Not to become a flawless observer. Not to transcend being human. But to finally be human without apology. So what do you do when you realize you've been watching yourself too closely? You loosen your grip. You stop trying to be interesting and let yourself be interested. You stop obsessing over whether you're being real and just speak. You stop analyzing the moment and enter it. Maybe you dance even when you feel awkward. Maybe you write without worrying if it's profound. Maybe you show up to the conversation without a rehearsed script. Maybe you let yourself laugh without checking if it's the right time. Because the more you do, the less room there is for overthinking how you're doing it. It's a rebalancing, a return to your body, your breath, your senses. A quiet reminder that the version of you that's thinking about life is only one small thread in a much larger tapestry. Watts reminds us that the observer is not the master. The observer is the tool. You don't need to silence that inner watcher. You just need to stop bowing to it every second of the day. Let it rest. Let it sit in the back seat for once. Because you know what doesn't overanalyze itself? Joy. Joy doesn't need to check itself in the mirror. Joy just is. It arrives in those unguarded moments, the unplanned joke, the offbeat rhythm, the random late-night adventure where you forget to narrate your life and start living it. Because as soon as you're asking them, you've already stepped out of the experience and into the narrative. You've become the centipede again, counting its legs instead of walking. So maybe, just for today, you stop counting. Maybe you let your body move. Let your thoughts come and go. Let your experience be what it is, without dissecting it into layers. And when that part of your mind shows up again, the narrator, the evaluator, the inner perfectionist, you don't need to fight it. You just smile. You say, thanks for your input, and you keep walking. Because you don't need to be watched. You need to live. And beneath all the layers of self-awareness, self-analysis, and self-improvement, there's a version of you that already knows how. You knew how to be present long before you knew what presence was. You knew how to be real before you learned to question your authenticity. You knew how to be you before you ever picked up the habit of checking in with a mental mirror every 5 seconds. That version of you is still in there. Not lost. Just buried under too much trying. And Watts' voice, soft but insistent, calls you back to it. Reminding you that life isn't something to master. It's something to join. So join it. Get off the stage. Step out of the spotlight. Let the watcher take a break. Feel your feet on the ground. Hear the sound of your own laugh. Say what you mean, even if it comes out messy. Make something without asking whether it's worthy. Love something without wondering if it makes sense. Because the real danger of being too self-aware is that you start missing your own life while trying to figure out how to live it. And the real miracle is that you can come back to it anytime, right now, even. No deep insight required. No perfect mindset. No fancy technique. Just a decision to stop watching and start living. So now you're starting to feel it, that quiet little click in your chest that says, oh, not oh, I get it intellectually, but oh, in that deeper, visceral, can't quite explain it way. The kind of knowing that bypasses the brain and lands somewhere behind your ribs. The kind Alan Watts lived to point people toward. Because what Watts was always trying to do underneath all the wordplay and laughter and philosophical elegance was remind us of something we already know but forgot. You're not broken, you're not incomplete, and you're not a puzzle to be solved. You're a wave in motion. Not a static object with fixed edges, but a process, fluid, shifting, alive, and self-awareness. It's only a tool. A mirror you glance into when you need it. But you were never meant to live inside that mirror. Because once you do, every movement becomes calculation. Every breath gets evaluated. Every experience becomes a question. Is this right? Did I do this well? What does this say about me? That's not living. That's surveillance. And the most painful part, when you're trapped in that over-self-aware loop, it doesn't feel like a trap at first. It feels like you're doing the work. Like you're growing. Like you're getting better. But better according to who? The moment your inner compass gets replaced by a mental whiteboard covered in checklists. Was that interaction authentic? Was that thought evolved? Did I respond like a mindful person should? You've lost the plot. Watts saw this happening not just in individuals, but in entire cultures. Especially the modern West, with its obsession over the self. Our apps track our steps, our sleep, our mood. Our feeds are curated personal brands. Our self-help books have subtitles like Unlock Your Ultimate Potential. But who exactly is doing the unlocking? And who keeps changing the lock? At some point, the line between awareness and obsession blurs. And what started as inner inquiry turns into spiritual micromanagement. You start looking at your joy like it's data. You start measuring your presence like it's productivity. You start treating your humanity like it's a project under construction. That's when self-awareness becomes a weight. Heavy, unyielding, quietly suffocating. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't restrain you like chains. It nudges you to hesitate. You want to speak your mind, but first you wonder what that says about your emotional intelligence. You want to rest, but your brain pipes up with, is this avoidance or healthy self-care? You want to cry, but then ask yourself if it's coming from unresolved childhood stuff. You want to dance, but oh God, are you being performative? And then you're frozen. Not by fear, not by shame, but by your own monitoring system. That's the trap. That's what Watts was pointing to when he talked about the centipede, when he talked about infinite regression, when he warned us of becoming stuck watching the watcher watch the watcher. Because awareness without compassion becomes a prison. And when you're hyper-aware of your every move, you don't grow, you calcify. But here's the twist. You don't have to shatter that mental trap with some epic spiritual breakthrough. You don't need to escape the loop by transcending the ego or reading 12 more books or fixing every unconscious pattern in your family lineage. The way out is radically simpler. You just stop playing. You stop narrating. You stop performing your own awakening and let yourself forget for a minute. Forget what's expected of you. Forget what growth is supposed to look like. Forget your checklist of how a mindful person behaves. And then, you breathe. You walk. You laugh mid-sentence. You interrupt yourself and don't apologize. You feel a burst of joy and don't wonder where it came from. You sit in silence without needing it to be profound. You come back to the thing beneath the thing, your aliveness. That's the only compass you ever needed. That's what Watts meant when he said the observer and the observed are one. That you're not to people a performer and an audience. You're one unfolding moment, undivided. A dance, not a routine. And when you remember that, not in your head, but in your gut, the mirror cracks just a little. Light comes through. You exhale for the first time in hours, maybe days, and suddenly, you're back. Not because you figured yourself out, but because you stopped trying to. Watts would laugh gently here. He'd probably say something like, "Of course it was never about figuring it out. You were already it." And that laugh, that's important, because the other thing, too much self-awareness kills. Humor, not just in the world, but in yourself. You lose your softness. You lose your ability to laugh at your own nonsense. You take your process so seriously that everything becomes sacred. Everything becomes heavy. Everything becomes a bit much. Watts didn't want that for you. He wanted you to be able to joke about the cosmic absurdity of it all. To laugh at how you tie yourself in mental knots trying to be spiritually free. To shrug at your patterns sometimes, not out of apathy, but out of mercy. Because sometimes, the most enlightened thing you can do is laugh at yourself and eat a sandwich. That's not regression. That's grace. And if you're still thinking, okay, but how do I apply this? You're already missing the point. This isn't something you apply. This is something you remember. You remember that before you tried to be self-aware, you were already aware. You remember that before you tried to be authentic, you were already real. You remember that life was never asking you to perform for it. It was asking you to show up. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.